So we've helped this apparel brand increase revenue by 137% over the last 18 months, right? We've gone from doing 80K months up to 190K months. And more recently, we had our biggest month, 220K, which is incredible. So the returns that we've seen are amazing. And essentially what I want to do in today's video is break down exactly how we were able to achieve that, the campaign setup that we use, the structure that we use, and how we optimize the campaigns to essentially increase revenue for them by 137%. We've generated over 2.1 million in sales over the last 18 months now, sold over 12,000 products online, all through Google Ads. And so what I'm going to do today is show you exactly how we did it. Now, if you are new here, my name is Will. Welcome to the channel. Over the last 5 years, my team and I have generated over 80 million on behalf of e-commerce brands all around the world through Google Ads. We work with 7- and 8-figure direct-to-consumer businesses like Better Kitchens, Florence London, Arabella UK, Besame Cosmetics, and many more. And in today's video, I'm going to walk you through how we increased revenue for this California-based apparel brand. We were able to increase revenue, like I say, by 137%, going from 80K months to 190K months in a pretty short period, right? So this is what we're going to walk through in today's video. Now that's all from me. Let's jump into the video. So just to give you an idea as to who this brand is for some context before we jump into how we help them. This brand is a equestrian riding apparel, tack and accessory brand, right? Now there's two parts of their business. There's the consignment part and then there's the new with tags, right? So the products that they sell, they can either be consigned from their customers, from their community, or they come in from brands new with tags to be sold, right? So there's two parts of this business. Now, for any of you that don't know about consignment stock is pre-owned stock. Normally it comes in from your community or it comes in from vendors, and you say, look, I'll take the stock, I'll advertise it on my website, and if I sell it, great, I'll give you a cut. If I don't sell it, we will either dispose of it or give you it back. It's an amazing model, but it is very difficult to advertise for. There's thousands and thousands of SKUs coming in and out of stock all the time, and you never have like more than 20 of something, right? You always have just like a handful of products. Some are in large, some might be in XL, some might be in extra small, right? You can't control your inventory in the same way as a brand that just has best sellers that they can just keep replenishing more and more and more of. Now, the previous agency that were managing this account had made a complete cock up with the way that they had essentially segmented everything. They had $2,500 to $4,000 saddles in the same campaign as they had shirts. They were advertising for $30 to $45, right? So the difference in the average order value, the difference in the order value of those products in the same campaign was killing their results. And that's just part of it, right? They were also advertising too heavily through brand. They didn't have non-branded campaigns. They had no real segmentation, no real structure. And that's the reason why the business was performing terribly. So basically, Google Ads was just chewing through budget without a positive return. And they were struggling to grow even though they were adding more and more budget to the fire. It wasn't really making any difference whatsoever, right? And I hear this from brands all the time. They're throwing more money at their Google Ads, and all that happens is their ROAS tanks and their cost per conversion just skyrockets, and they actually end up just spending more without generating any more sales. This is what was happening here. So we built everything from the ground up, and here is how we did it. So as I mentioned, the first thing that we solved was the mismatch in average order value. Now, when you've got products that are $2,500 plus in the same campaign as products that are sort of like $30 to $50, you've got a problem on your hands, right? Because the price you might be willing to pay for a customer that's going to, come in and spend 3 to 4K with you is completely different. The cost per conversion is completely different to someone that is happy to come in and spend $30 to $50 with you on a shirt, right? So they're two completely different customers. And so you'd be prepared to pay two completely different prices to get that conversion, right? So if you had a product that was $35 to $50, you might be prepared, knowing your profit margins, you might be prepared to spend, let's say, $5 to $10 to generate that conversion, right? That might give you a healthy enough ROAS to be profitable. But For the saddles, for the expensive products, if they're $3,000 to $4,000, right, you might be willing to spend $200 to $400, maybe even $500, $600, depending on your profit margin, to acquire that customer. So essentially having those products in the same campaign means that you've got people coming in and, half of the audience is looking for a $30 to $50 shirt and the other half is looking for a super expensive saddle. And so Google can't quite work out what your cost per conversion goal needs to be, because on one end it's getting 10x ROAS on $200 conversion for the saddles, and yet that same $200 cost per conversion on a product that's $30 to $50 is losing you thousands every single month, right? So you just have no way of controlling the cost to acquire a customer, and that is a problem. So you should never include products that are wildly different in AOV in the same campaigns, because the higher AOV stuff just chews through budget and the lower AOV stuff really suffers as a result of it. Cost per conversion is almost always too high and the ROAS is rubbish. So we split everything out, right? We gave saddles its own campaign, we gave tack and accessories their own campaign, and then we gave apparel its own campaign. 3 completely different goals in terms of what we were wanting to achieve and what we were able to achieve from a cost per conversion perspective, right? We might spend $200 to acquire saddle customers, $80 to acquire tack customers, and $5 to $15 to acquire those apparel customers. And that was giving us a much healthier ROAS, much cleaner data, and the algorithm was learning a lot quicker who those types of buyers were. So next we needed to control brand traffic. So we basically split all non-branded stuff from branded stuff, because when we were looking inside this account, the biggest issue that we saw is that all of our campaigns were just targeting brand customers, right? When I say brand customers, I mean customers that have already heard of you before, have already purchased from you before, and are coming back to your website through terms like your brand name and warm terms, right? So we wanted to get away from that, because that's a reason why this account was adding more and more spend but not seeing any more growth. Normally this happens, right? It will be an issue that we see all the time where Performance Max and you might have a branded search and a Performance Max and some shopping campaigns, and they're all just going after brand. So we need to make sure that we're controlling non-brand and branded traffic so we can get an idea as to what our ROAS looks like on that cold audience versus what our ROAS looks like for our branded traffic. They're 2 completely different things. So what did we do to solve this? We basically built non-branded, like I say, and branded campaigns. One's dedicated for brand, one's dedicated for non-brand, and essentially we then went into our Performance Max campaigns and we excluded brand from them as well. So we essentially were able to control what we were spending on brand and then what we were spending on new customer acquisition. Our goal was as many new customers as possible. Our returning customer rate was healthy, so we knew we needed to acquire as many new customers as possible. So we doubled down on our non-branded stuff, right? Trying to find new customers that haven't heard of us, and that's how we built the campaigns. Now, step number 3 is where things start to get a little bit interesting. Because of the nature of this business and the fact that they're a consignment brand, we needed to build campaigns that essentially leaned into that approach, right? So because their inventory constantly changes, meaning that sizes and stock and different brands, are constantly coming in and out of stock at any one time. So, you've not got best sellers in the traditional sense. You've got brands that sell well. You've got specific products that sell well. But in terms of the inventory turnaround is super quick, right? So we might have 5 products in size large come in, they all go out, and then that product goes out of stock, right? But we wanted to build a structure that essentially leaned into that and helped them to grow, help them to manage their inventory as best as they possibly could. And so instead of treating all stock the same, we decided to build a structure around the stock levels and the age of the product and the sizes of the product, right? Which allowed them to scale quicker and reduce their wasted advertising spend. So how did we do this? We essentially built them what we call like a zombie system, right? So any products that didn't sell very well over a 90-day period, anything that was sort of getting a lot of spend distribution but wasn't selling, was moved out of our product campaigns, right? It was no longer advertised. Because the biggest issue that we found is that if it's a consignment product, they will take it from a user of theirs, or someone that's essentially said, look, try and sell my product for me. It could be someone from their community, right? So they would send the product in and then we would try and sell it for them. But if we didn't sell that product, let's say it was a $50 top, if we'd spent $45 on it and not sold it, and then we decided to pull it from being advertised, because at that point we're making no profit anyway, not only have we spent $45, but we have to give that item back. So that item's not ours to sell, right? It's not ours to give on to someone or whatever we want to do with it. Like, we've just lost $45 in advertising spend, and we still don't have the item at the very least to show for it. So that was a massive problem, and that's what we wanted to try and accomplish with this structure. So anything that didn't sell over a certain period of time, anything that wasn't selling very well, would essentially be moved out of the campaign and put into its own campaign, advertised there for a couple more weeks before essentially we would then stop advertising that product altogether. And this would all be based off the average order value of the product, the price of the product, right? We might be able to spend a little bit more on those saddles that I mentioned, but we would obviously spend less on the apparel. And so the structure that we built allowed them to control their inventory, manage their spend, and that meant that we were able to spend more on the products that were really working, more on the categories and the brands, and like I said, the products that were really working. So that allowed us to increase revenue for them whilst minimizing that advertising waste. And so finally, what we did is we looked at Google Merchant Center. So just to recap what we've done so far, we've essentially segmented the campaigns based off AOV. We've created a structure that minimizes the waste on products that weren't selling. And now we're going into Google Merchant Center to essentially improve the quality of the feed. So we added things like seller ratings to boost click-through rate, removed those low performing SKUs, as I mentioned, so we could allow winners to win. And then we planned all of our promotions in advance, right? So we were planning promotions around their calendar in advance so that we were always keeping the feed fresh, always promoting new offers to customers through Google Shopping. And what we also did is we looked at things like titles and descriptions and the images as well, right? We're just like looking at what's working best. Is it lifestyle or is it more studio shots? And we would then look at that and optimize the account based off that. But essentially that's how we did it. That's how we were able to increase revenue by 137%, taking them from 80k months to 190k months, doing 2.1 million in revenue and selling over 12,000 products online for this apparel brand. And I'm sure you can do it the same if you implement a similar structure. We turned a what was unhealthy account with a chaotic structure that wasn't focusing on bestsellers and the inventory that was selling into a machine that was generating profit for them, right? And so now when they increase their budget, they can expect more sales, whereas before they were increasing their budget and all that would happen is their cost per conversion would go up and their ROAS would tank. And I know from a handful of people that have booked calls over the last couple of weeks that this is a common problem that you're facing, right? So lean into this, make sure that you're allowing your best sellers to win, and make sure that you're segmenting your campaigns when you've got enough data to prioritize those products that work. So if you're running Google Ads right now and you're not happy with the performance of your account, just remember the things that I have mentioned in this video. And if you're a consignment brand, even better, right? You can build a structure that allows you to maximize your returns. But even if you're just an apparel brand, a lot of what I've said today is super relevant. And we also work with a ton of apparel brands as well. So if you do need some help, I'll leave a link below. You can schedule some time on my calendar. But just to go through what we've already touched on, we segmented by AOV and we never added products into the same campaign with completely different order values, completely different prices. We keep the $30 products away from the $3,000 products. We split brand and non-branded campaigns into their own structure, which allowed us to focus on the non-branded stuff to generate as many new customers as we possibly could, while still making sure that anyone that was trying to find us online that already knew about us, they were able to find us really easily. And then we built the adaptive system that essentially allowed us to make sure that we weren't overspending on those products that had a ton of spend but weren't generating any results for us, weren't selling for us. We minimize the spend on those products, and we have a structure that allows us to maximize profitability and then invest that money into products that were working, right? And finally, we optimize the merchant center. Merchant center is everything. It's massively overlooked in our industry, but ultimately, the cleaner your feed, the better your products will perform. So that's all for today's video. Now, I hope you found some value. If you have, consider giving us a like and a subscribe. We're a very new channel. We're on our way to 200 subscribers. And thank you to everyone that's been a part of the journey so far. Now, if you are an e-commerce brand that's spending above $4,000 a month on ads right now, and you're not happy with your revenue, you're not happy with your ROAS, we would love to do you a completely free Google Ads audit showing you how to get better performance out of your ads. So if that's you, hit the first link in the description and you'll be able to book some time on my calendar before we get started with the audit. And if that's not you, I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.